You might want to save that to the end, make sure I earn it, but thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. How are you? Excellent. So what do you want to learn today? What's interesting? What brings you here? Today, this conference will be successful if what?
New customers.
Thank you. New customers. Anything else? If I talk about, a great recipe for mac and cheese, will you guys be okay with that?
Yes.
Great. How many of you have read or seen The Hunger Games? How many of you have read all 3 books in the series? Pretty good stuff, huh? So I saw the movie a week ago with my daughter. I was inspired to read the books, finished them by Saturday. Less than a week later, they're fantastic. So if you haven't read them, read them. If you have, it turns out there is a lesson in the Hunger Games on how to be successful in a social space with social media. We'll get to that in a little bit. This morning I want to talk about how to make sure that you are as effective as possible in engaging the people that you do business with. In order to do that, you need to tell your story as well as you possibly can. Professionalism, as Ben introduced it a moment ago, that's the punchline, the blending of your personal and professional worlds. But we'll get there. I want to start with the concept that you need to be able to tell your story effectively if you are going to be effective in your job in a social space. For the last 2.5 years, my company's been training people on social media. These are the complaints we get. These are the concerns people have. They're not technical in nature. These are not the concerns of people who are comfortable with their story and know how to tell it in a social environment. These are the concerns of people who are afraid, who have some fear about how to engage. If you're going to be successful, if you're going to tell your story successfully, if you're going to engage with other people successfully, you need to anticipate that the people that you're engaging with, even today in 2012, have these concerns. They have very real fears. So part of your story is going to be communicating in a way that helps people alleviate their concerns. How do we do that? Well, we'll get to how to do that. But in order for the how to make sense, we have to understand why this is the case. And to understand where people's fear comes from, I want to tell a little story about a sandwich that some of you might remember called the McDLT. If you remember the McDLT from the 1980s, round of applause for McDonald's. The genius folks at McDonald's devised a sandwich that they called the McDLT. And the selling point of the McDLT was that the hot side stayed hot and the cold side stayed cold. Turns out structure begets more structure, even when structure has outlived its useful life, as in the case of the McDLT. First of all, the McDLT was a solution to a problem that didn't exist. In 38 years, I have never bit into a fast food burger and said to myself, if the lettuce were only 3 degrees cooler, this would have been a great sandwich. The other problem is McDonald's invited all kinds of additional costs and environmental impact into its production line. Right? The environmentalists went nuts immediately when the McDLT was introduced. They wanted McDonald's to stop using styrofoam at all, and here McDonald's is now using twice as much styrofoam in its packaging. It also doubled its packaging costs. It costs twice as much to manufacture this, to ship it, to store it, because it takes up twice as much space as other packages. So why didn't McDonald's see this? Well, because structure begets more structure, even when it's outlived its useful life. And it turns out we've been doing this in our lives since we were born. Over there, that's our professional life. Over here, this is our personal life. And we keep these things separate, and we insist on keeping them separate, even though keeping them separate makes no sense. It never has. Here's proof. Almost 60% of you have dated a coworker. 35% of the Fortune 500 is family run. Maybe not, family run, but family run. You think the S.C. Johnson Wax Company turns it off on Thanksgiving? You think they just say, they come over for a birthday party and everyone stops talking business? It doesn't work like that. Even at a small business, it doesn't work like that. And I know some of you work at small businesses. Either you work with family, a family member owns your company, you have family members who own your company, and we all know the politics and challenges that we face when we work in a family-run business. Professional and personal aren't separate. In fact, even on social, this is the case. 20% of your Facebook friends are professional. They're work-related. It's time to give up the ghost. We need to let go of the packaging. We need to let the life burger out of the box, so to speak. This is scary. We're all like McDonald's. We've all built this world for ourselves, this little McDLT existence, where we've got our personal side over here and our professional side over there. Social media is causing a reduction in structure, and it's not easy for us to absorb it. Some of us are doing it well. That's why we're in the room today. Some of us aren't doing it so well. That's why we have the concerns that I posted on a slide a few pages ago. So in order to wean people off structure, here's how I want you to think about it. Activities can be professional. Activities can be personal. But people are professional. This is a photo of a business meeting on a beach with wine and a bed and door knockers, name tags, business casual attire, and conversation about the strategy of the firm. You don't have a personal you don't have a personal life or a professional life any more than you have a fun life or a serious life or a studious life. These are all different sides of the same being. If you want to be successful online, if you want to engage your audience online, the very first thing you need to do is you need to be able to tell your story effectively. And to tell your story effectively, you need to tell the whole story, not just the professional side, the whole thing, personal and professional. Anything with soul is going to resist being put in a box. When you run into problems or you're dealing with fear, you're dealing with people who are trying to segment their livelihood. It doesn't work. So, what are we going to do about this? How do we make a transition? How do we help others make a transition? As you go through the day, as you read blog posts on social media, as you educate yourself, as you engage, think about the rules of social media as half the game. You need to know the rules. You need to know what to do with LinkedIn, with Pinterest, with Facebook, with Foursquare, with mobile technologies. But you also need to know the rules of the game. It's not just what to say, but it's also the context. It's how you say it. It's how you present yourself. And ensuring that there is consistency between the content and context of what you put out there. So how do we do that? Well, the first step is to tell one story. Combine your personal and professional worlds into one. You have one story. How many stories do you have? One. How many? One. You can have as many subplots as you want. Those hands that shot up when I was asking about the Hunger Games, it's one story. It's a lot of subplots. Some characters you like more than others. Some subplots are more exciting than others. Your personal subplots will range from everything to I threw my back out to I just packed a bag and moved to a new city. I know nobody where I'm going. Your professional subplots will range from I hope I get a raise this year to I'm quitting and starting my own business. But they are all just subplots in your one story. And when you engage with others, you need to be aware of the full range of what you're dealing with. Real quick example, not a social example, but a real quick example from my own life of how this impacts us. I was negotiating with another company, significant negotiation. This is a strategic partner of Ajax Social Media, and we were talking about how to bring these companies together, even to the point of possibly engaging in a merger. Well, it turns out one of the guys on the other side of the deal had a sick parent and kept changing our meeting times to accommodate his personal life, but never told anybody on our side what was going on his personal life. The conclusion I came to was that negotiating for when we were going to meet was part of the negotiations. I thought he was pushing me around to see what I would take. So I played a little hardball with him. It was the wrong call, but it was the right call based on what I was seeing. It wasn't until we were halfway through our fourth move and I had already racked up a couple $100 in change fees on airline tickets and missed hotel rooms that somebody else in the company said, you know, he's dealing with a sick parent at home. That's why we keep changing the meeting. Wow. If he had just told me that up front, it would have completely changed the way I approached our negotiation. Tell the full story. Remember, these are subplots of one story. Secondly, in a social community, your story is not just told by you. Part of your story is told by the reaction other people have to you. You know the phrase, you can judge a person by the company they keep? On social media, I can literally judge you by the company you keep because I can literally see the company you keep. I don't just see your friends at a Friday night outing. I see them on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on Pinterest. I can see their interest when they think nobody else is watching. And if you're going to be judged by the company you keep, you'd better get a little more savvy at judging the company you keep first. We hear a lot about adding connections. Don't forget to remove them, too. If all of your connections are online, if 20% of your Facebook friends are professional relationships, then something else is true, too. We're very rapidly leaving a period of time where you could be great at your job and a complete ass at home. Where you could be hard-nosed at work but a cream puff at home. Because all of your coworkers, 20% of them can see you being an ass at home. And word's going to get back to the people you work with. The themes you hear yourself are your reality. We need to get down to one version of yourself. Very difficult moving forward to maintain two different personas in different areas of your life. We've got to find a way to integrate them. Pay attention to the themes. Pay attention to what you hear about yourself. That's your truth. That's your reality. That's what you need to accept and work from. On a related note, because of social media, you're out there today. You're engaging today. You can't wait to engage until you've perfected everything, until you have your story, you've got the right network, you're comfortable. You're out there today. The world is going to see you as you get over your learning curve. You know what that means? Lighten up. That is my car. That is my license plate. Relax. I drove a Mini Cooper for 8 years. My goal was to get 100,000 miles out of this thing, and I did it. When I traded it in, it had 100,230 miles on it. And I kind of needed the opposite of a Mini Cooper for a little bit, so I got a Camaro convertible. And I thought, you know what? I want to get a license plate. I want to get a vanity plate. And I was thinking about what to get, and I was thinking about all these things that describe what I do. Storyteller, social media. And at the end of the day, what I do is I make people appreciate their own stories. I make them feel good about who they are. I solve what I call as the Friday night problem. I make it so that what they do Monday through Friday, they feel good enough about to explain it. They want to share it with their friends on Friday night. So rather than explain that, I got a license plate that solves the Friday night problem. You should see how many people behind me at a red light take out their cameras and snap pictures. Sometimes they're laughing with me, sometimes they're laughing at me. I don't care. I'm giving them content that they can now post online, email to their friends, that make them a hit with the people that they operate with. I have one story. Whether I'm online or offline, whether it's my professional world or personal world, I never forget what I'm built for, helping people see the best version of their story, and everything I do is geared around that. Some of you may have thought about this phrase, work-life balance. And a couple of you may have even wondered why I didn't use the term work-life balance when I was talking about the McDLT lifestyle and having the hot side stayed hot and the cold side stayed cold in terms of personal and professional. The reason for that is that work-life balance is a joke. It is a complete fiction. You do not achieve balance by keeping your world in two separate boxes, especially when one box is labeled life. I'm sorry, but if I have life in this hand, there is nothing you can put in this hand that's going to be a balance to what's over here, except maybe death, in which case we have just created a subliminal association between death and work. And you wonder why people struggle with HR. Balance comes from being flexible. Balance comes from getting your life out of its boxes by saying, you know what, I've got activities that are going to follow a personal protocol, activities that will follow a professional protocol. I need to stay flexible because I won't always know situation by situation which protocol wins out. If you can maintain that flexibility, you will achieve balance. The Hunger Games, Katniss Everdeen, very quiet, very peaceful, survivor, hunter. That's who she is. She needs to be the Mockingjay. She needs to be the face of a revolution. That is beyond her capacity. She struggles to integrate these two sides of her. But she can't put them in a box. She's constantly toggling back and forth. In every situation she gets into, she's saying, which protocol do I use? Is this the Katniss protocol? Is this the Mockingjay protocol? And it's her struggle, it's her willingness to stay flexible that makes her the hero of the book. That's what allows her and the people around her to be successful. Guys, some of you were wondering how I was going to tie Hunger Games back in here. Huh? Flexibility comes from adaptability. So get out there, tell your story. How do you do that? There's something that you want to do. Go do that thing. Go take a risk. Go dare yourself. You want to say something online? Make sure it doesn't break the law. Make sure it doesn't violate your company policy, and go do it. You now have permission to bring some personality to work as long as you button up on the home side. That's how you achieve a personal existence. And if you buy that and you allow yourself to be adaptable and be professional, your story will get that much better, which ultimately connects you to your customers, connects you to your prospects, and makes you more effective at using social media to drive productivity at work. That's my presentation. Thank you very much. So I kept it short because I figure that's a high-level presentation about professionalism. You're all here to talk about social recruiting. Now, let's spend a little time and connect the two. This isn't going to be me talking. I actually want to hear your questions. What's going through your head? And let's see if we can start drawing some connective tissue. That was a bad metaphor. Just lines. Draw some lines between these two. Yes? Yeah.
So can you explain why we might have gotten perhaps that feedback from that particular individual that you think should keep, we have everyone on LinkedIn, or what's
All right, so the question is, somebody from LinkedIn came out to your organization and said, keep your Facebook and your LinkedIn sites totally separate. Facebook's very noisy, and things you can do there could impact work. So a few things. One, my company has a very close relationship with LinkedIn. We co-develop content. They bring us out to their conferences. I don't think that what she's saying necessarily contradicts what I'm saying. I think it's more fundamental. Right? Facebook has a more personal protocol that governs the activities that happen there. LinkedIn has a more professional protocol. Right? There is a business casual protocol over this room right now. If we go drinking tonight, we're going to let our guard down, and we're going to hang out with one another. Right? That's the difference between LinkedIn and Facebook. It's the same people, different rules of engagement. You're going to have people in your organizations who like a black and white world. They will not necessarily be able to get to what I'm talking about in one step. Professionalism is a few steps out. They have to deal with those fears that I highlighted early on. So I give this talk to rooms like this because you're the leaders. I think I can pull you further along. When you take this message back to your organizations, understand you may or may not be able to have everybody embrace professionalism. What you want to do is put it on their consciousness, let them know that's the goal, but then walk them there in baby steps. And the first baby step might be, hey, be aware you have professional colleagues on your Facebook profile, and you probably have some friends and family watching your LinkedIn page, right? So just start with awareness. In terms of buttoning up the personal stuff, this is a difference between what should be and what is. Right? What should be? Well, in the world of what should be, Facebook should be where you can say whatever you want, and LinkedIn should be where you have a completely professional existence. The world that is much more subtle. Recruiters are looking at your Facebook page. Your friends and family are connected with you online. Your friends will judge you based on the way you work. If they hear you complain, we all know this. You all have friends who are complainers, and you're like, okay, yeah, you're a clock puncher. And you might not tell your friend this, but you know it about him, and you set your expectations accordingly. And then you have a friend who says something brilliant or who has an amazing LinkedIn profile, and you say, wow, I didn't realize that in the last 15 years since we graduated college, you've actually developed quite an expertise. And your opinion of that person changes based on their professional behavior. That's the world as it is. So LinkedIn has a worldview. We have a worldview. They have to operate a little bit more closely to the what should be world. I get the freedom to operate a little bit more in the what is world. And that combined with the fact that I have leaders, I think is what accounts for the difference in how closely we pull Facebook and LinkedIn. Yes?
Curious about Pinterest. Obviously, that's a space where people can really express themselves personally. And are you seeing companies kind of leverage that for great purposes or maximizing people?
So Pinterest, am I seeing companies engage with Pinterest? The answer is yes. They don't really know what they're doing yet. So in 1436, Gutenberg started stamping out Bibles on his printing press. In about 1500, boom, things really exploded across Europe, and you had print shops opening up all over the place. What happened in the 64 years between 1436 and 1500? Well, two things. The population had to get literate. Secondly, they had to get procedurally literate. Book publishers needed to figure out how to create references and indices and cites so that they could keep information square between books. People had to recognize the potential for books. I mean, imagine 1440, and somebody shows you a book of the Bible. You say, okay, this is ridiculous. I have to learn how to read, and then I'm going to go read this by myself, and I have no training to understand what I'm reading, when I could just go to church on Sunday and have it read to me and have it interpreted for me. This sounds like a solution to a problem that doesn't exist, right? It takes some time to figure out what to do with this. In the lifespan of social media, we're in about 1450. So yes, I see companies using Pinterest. I see them using a lot of other tools too. We don't quite know how to use these tools. We haven't quite figured out the code. So there's a lot of playing going on. Here's what I love about Pinterest. A picture's worth 1,000 words, and Pinterest is all photos. I have 2 Pinterest boards myself. One has all the photos on all my blog posts. The other one is velvet blazers. Which one do you think gets more traction? It's a total experiment. I would encourage you to play. I would encourage you to use Pinterest, use Foursquare, use LinkedIn, use Facebook, use these tools. Set up groups. Set goals for yourself. Set hypotheses about how you anticipate these things should work. And then test them for 3, 6, 12 months. And based on the results, either change them or abandon them. Yes? Mm-hmm. Sure. So about training, how do you, what happens when you want to train an organization about in using social for recruiting? It's a great question, and this is what our company does, and I'm going to share some of our secret sauce with you right now. Number one, LinkedIn is a fantastic place to start. It is the cleanest, it's kind of a gateway drug of sorts for social media. It is the cleanest, it is the most professional, so folks who do have concerns, it's an easy step for them to take. The place that you want to start is not with the technology. It's with that list of concerns that I had up on the board earlier. You're dealing with change management, you're dealing with emotional blocks. You're dealing with managers who are afraid that they're putting all of their people out for their competitors to poach. You're dealing with marketers who are afraid. You look at social and you say, wow, we've got 6,000 people. That means that when marketing comes up with a message, I can have that amplified times 6,000. Marketing is looking at 6,000 people going, wait a second, I get paid to amplify the message. If we've got 6,000 people amplifying the message, what's my job? I don't know about this. I'm going to get fired. I have had people say those exact words to me. That's what you're dealing with. So when you get folks onto social, a few things. Number one, talk about social business, not just social recruiting. Number two, Let everyone know. Employees and employers all want the same thing, security. We're all human beings, which means we're going to take the shortest path to security. Whatever's easiest, that's what we're going to do. If managers think that shutting it down is easiest, then they're going to shut it down. If employees think that the easiest thing to do with LinkedIn is to put up a resume, then that's what they're going to do. What you need to focus on is getting both sides to understand that if managers open up social and embrace it, they take away an incentive for people to leave. If individuals embrace social and embrace the company message, they get to grow the company. They can talk to their customers as opposed to recruiters. It's now easier for them to use social media to grow their current job than to try and get a new one. That's the easiest way to grow. Be successful and get a promotion. There's no transaction cost. You're already hired. You don't have to worry about how you're going to make rent for 2 months between jobs. So start there. When it comes to training, the folks that you train are going to ask you, what do I do? Who do I reach out to? What do I say? Pull them back. Before you reach out, you have to play defense. We have to make sure that you present yourself as somebody that others will want to connect with. Make sure that they establish a profile that's worthy of other people's connections. We're starting to opt into relationships the way we buy big screen TVs. I research you, and if I like what I see, then maybe I engage. I had a salesperson in New York come up to me at the beginning of a training program. Said, I don't think this LinkedIn thing works. I sent 17 in-mails to executives at a Fortune 50 company, and I got a big goose egg in response. I said, well, great. You know what? It might not work for your industry. It might not work for your company. Let's unwrap this. Let's see what we got. Well, his letter, his in-mail, was beautiful. But people don't see his in-mail. What they see is they see his picture, his name, and his headline before anything else. Well, his picture looked like a mugshot, an angry mugshot. And his headline talked about how his expertise was in getting new clients and cracking open new markets. You're an executive at a Fortune 50 company. You can see this guy coming from a mile away. You're not reading what he's got because you're not in the mood for a sales pitch. Help people establish a credible profile. Start there. Yeah, time. How much time do we have? Great. We got time for a few more. Yes?
Yes, I work for a staffing firm. How do you kind of brand identity your company on social networks and sites and highlight individuals? Second of all, for staffing companies, my candidates, my contacts, my income, how do you do that on the social network sites so that everybody's kind of connected and interconnected, like contacts and contacts?
Those are both very big questions. So if you're okay, I just want to take the first one. How do you use social to brand? How do you engage the individuals at a company in branding in a social environment? The challenge that most people see at their companies is how do we take a message and cram it down to everybody so they're all taking the same message out? You've got people in corporate marketing who are used to thinking in control terms. I control the message. We develop a brand. I push it out through email. I push it out to the website. I push it out through television spots, through radio, through print. It's the same message, and I, the director of marketing, control it everywhere. Social media is going to freak them out. Because of the way that companies grow up and because of the silos that they have, most companies lack a process for translating a brand message to something that individuals can carry out. More than that, most companies lack the language to describe the process of taking a brand message and translating into something that individuals can use. So here's what we do. When we go in to do training, that's actually the problem that we solve. We call it workforce marketing. And the very first thing that we do is we get companies excited about the idea of having their employees amplify the brand message. That's just step one. We help the company understand how, given the right process, your employees will take down their resumes and will put up customer-facing profiles. That's a huge step. When they ask how we do it, step two is we say, we're going to look at your marketing mix. We're going to attach this whole thing to revenue. You've got all these activities in marketing, not in HR, not in communications, in marketing. And we want to create a column in your marketing mix called workforce marketing. And it's no different than direct mail or email or print or anything else. And In workforce marketing, there's going to be a lot of activities that look like training. But before we get to training, what we're going to do is we're going to interview your managers. We're going to interview your marketing team. We're going to take the pulse of your employees. We're going to find out, how do your people self-identify today? Not Radian 6 type stuff, not what are they talking about. How do they self-identify? What percentage of your internal population embraces the brand today? How do your managers articulate it? How do your marketers articulate it? When you do that, you can now go back to marketing and HR, and you have the information you need to make the case. Then what you do is you take all those interviews you did, and you craft half a dozen different messages. Now when you go to the individual people, now when you roll out your training, it's not where to put the buttons, right? But when you get to LinkedIn, it's, okay, let's help you articulate your summary. It's not the content, it's the context. Let's take the great words you have under your job description that you just cut and pasted from a job description, and let's turn it into something that your customers will respond to. So what do? How are you better? Oh, by the way, how you're better? I have about half a dozen statements that marketing wrote out because we figure you'd probably want to compete as a member of this team. You're free to compete on your own, but if you want to compete as a member of the team, here's the heavy lifting, and we've already done it. And guess what happens? Marketing has control. Individuals are excited because you're making their jobs easy, and it starts to come together. But you need to lay those first few steps down. You need to put that process in place first, because if you try to jump straight into the training or straight into the individuals, the company doesn't understand what you're doing. There's no process, there's no language to understand what you're trying to achieve. Does that make sense? Is that helpful? Try it, let me know how it goes. We've got time for probably for another couple questions if we've got them. Maybe 2 more, or I can tell you a funny story. Yes, Mr. Fisher.
I've got a question for all the recruiters. How can recruiters brand themselves better and help the company?
So I'll give you the high points, and as you go through the day, I want you to challenge all the speakers that you interact with to take this down and make this very specific for you. How can you brand yourself? So Craig Fisher is Fish Dogs Online. He has a blog, a very well-trafficked blog, where he mixes content from Lifehacker, from a few other sources, interspersed with things that are important and relevant to the recruiting space. I have a blog, I do the same thing. I have 2 Pinterest boards. One's about velvet jackets. Social media lends itself to a very specific and very effective type of personal branding. When you go out there and brand yourself on social media, a lot of us do exactly the same thing. We rush out there, we say, this is my job, I want to be known as an expert at my job. And almost immediately you realize, wow, there's a lot of us. How am I going to stand out? It doesn't take much to stand out. I'm known as the guy in the velvet jacket. It's not an accident. I don't have to compete with my peers. I don't have to say, yeah, I actually know this leadership stuff. I know this social stuff. I know this LinkedIn stuff better than you. I don't. I get to be one voice in the crowd. I'm a memorable voice. That's all you need to do. I had a friend in Dallas, restaurateur. She wore black and white for 3 years when she was starting a new restaurant. Even her glasses, Ray-Bans, black and white checks. She walked into a room, you knew who she was, and she used the association to remind everybody of her restaurant. It was very effective. So when you get out there and you think of how you're going to brand yourself personally, dip into your personal life. Maybe you drive a fun car. Maybe you love butterflies. I know somebody in the room's got a business card in the shape of a butterfly. He's such a big fan. You all think I'm kidding, but I'm not. Think about things in your personal life. What are you known for? What makes you different? What's that thing that you're really afraid of everybody knowing? And just embrace it. I'm built like a stick figure. I got the world's longest ankles. The space between my heel and my calf goes on forever. I used to be mortified about that until I was like, you know what? That's my body. That's what it is. I put it out there, and it's funny. Take that thing that you're worried about and just do it. Make it yours. Own it. Own your story. And when you do that, then you can work some of your professional messages into that. Now you've made yourself approachable. You've used the brand to make yourself approachable. You've given yourself a doorway to be great at your job. That's the kind of personal branding that social is great for. Challenge your folks as you go through the day to help you understand how to do that and draw that out. And I think, even though we have a couple minutes left, this is a great time to end it, so you've got a couple extra minutes. I hope this was helpful. Thank you for the great questions. Enjoy the rest of your conference.